This video will be for the blind hem. So this one has a basic rectangle, but the grain line is going down the short end of the rectangle. That way we can use that long line as our hem of our garment. For this one, you can cut pinking shears on 3 sides and leave one of those long sides with the straight shears. I'm going to fold up and press my hem before I'm able to stitch it. So the first thing we're going to do is fold up on that straight edge. I'm going to lay it face down. On the straight edge, fold up 1.5 inches. That is a typical hem allowance. Here's my ruler. So 1.5 inches, fold up and press. And it should be consistent across the sample. Okay. And then the raw edge of my fabric, I'm going to fold under 1/4 inch. So I should just have 1.25 inches left showing once I'm done. Okay, so this is what our pressed sample should look like. Now we're ready to go hand stitch this hem closed. Okay, so to begin with, I'm going to pin this down. And I like to pin it not too close together because you will need to kind of separate these 2 layers as you stitch. So just every once in a while, I'm going to pin it down so that it stays folded for me as I begin. Okay, now you'll need a hand sewing needle and some thread. And we're going to stagger the ends of our thread so that we're only stitching with 1 layer at a time. So put it through the eye of the needle, and then the 2 ends should be different lengths. One should reach about halfway down your tail, and then the other should go longer. To begin, we are going to stitch in place. Okay, so stitch in place. I'm going to go just on the crease of my hem, take a tiny stitch, and then stitch over that same spot multiple times. So this is kind of acts like a back stitch, and it secures the end of your thread without the need for a knot, because a knot can be bulky and not very visually appealing. So stitch over that same spot 4 or 5 times to get started. That's your stitch in place. You can take off that beginning tail that we started with. And now I'm ready to start stitching. So like I said, we're only going to be stitching through one of these layers at a time. Either the hem or the garment, which is up top. The garment is the non-printed side. The hem is this crease that we've got along the top of our hemline. So to begin with, I'm going to go to my garment and take a very tiny stitch. And then right where I started, I'm going to go into my crease and let my needle run along the crease for a 1/4 inch. So run along the crease and then back out to my garment. So right where I came out of that crease, I'm going to take a tiny stitch out of my garment and then go back into the crease right where I came out and run along another 1/4 inch. Back out to the garment, tiny little stitch. Back down into the crease right where I came out, scoot over a 1/4 inch. So once I do that, I'm going to do that all the way across the sample, and you can pull it tight. On the backhand side, that's going to secure that hem to the fabric, so I shouldn't be able to pull it away. And from the front, you will just see these tiny little dots. You can see one right there, one right here. Tiny little dots, a 1/4 inch apart of where you took that tiny stitch out of the garment. If these were in purple, again, they would blend into my garment fabric and would essentially be invisible. So that's why it's called a blind stitch. On the back, your thread is hidden in that crease of the hem. On the front, you just see those tiny little dots. So I'll do 2 or 3 more of those, and then that is how you complete your sample. You just go all the way to the other side and do a stitch in place at the other end to secure the end of your thread. Make sure it's pulled tight so that your hem does not come away from your garment. And that is the blind stitch. In this case, we're using it for a hem, but this stitch is very common. It's used for other types of seams as well.